In 1185 BC, a young king named Amurapi sat in the coastal city of Ugarit, one of the richest cities in the ancient world, and wrote the most desperate letter in human history. My father, the enemy ships are already here. They have set fire to my towns and have done very great damage in the country. All my troops and chariots are in the land of Hatti, and all my ships are in the land of Lucca. The country is abandoned to itself. He was writing to the king of Cyprus, begging for help. The letter was never sent. Archaeologists found it centuries later, still in the oven, half-baked. The clay was being hardened when the city fell. Ugarit was destroyed so completely that humanity forgot it ever existed. For 3,000 years. And the people who did this? We still don't know who they were. The Egyptians called them the peoples from the sea. We call them the sea peoples. And what they did, or what happened around them, ended the greatest civilization the world had ever known. To understand the sea peoples, you first need to understand what they destroyed. Around 1250 BC, the Mediterranean was home to something that wouldn't exist again for thousands of years. A fully globalized world. Think of it like the ancient internet. Egypt, the Hittite Empire, Mycenaean Greece, Assyria, Babylon, Cyprus, Ugarit. These weren't isolated kingdoms. They were nodes in a web of trade so tight that the fall of one could bring down all the others. Egyptian gold flowed to the Hittites. Cypriot copper and tin from Afghanistan met in Ugarit to become bronze, the metal that powered the entire age. Mycenaean pottery showed up in Egyptian tombs. Hittite princesses married Egyptian pharaohs. Kings wrote to each other as equals. My brother. That's how the pharaoh addressed the Hittite king. Personal letters, trade deals, peace treaties, the world's first international diplomatic system. And then, within a single generation, all of it collapsed. Here's where it gets terrifying. Starting around 1200 BC, city after city began to fall. Not over centuries, not over decades. Within about 50 years, the entire Bronze Age world was gone. Ugarit, destroyed, burned to the ground, never rebuilt. Hattusa, capital of the Hittite Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations on Earth, burned and abandoned. The entire Hittite Empire, which had rivaled Egypt for centuries, simply vanished. Troy, yes, that Troy, destroyed in this same period. Mycenae, the civilization that produced Achilles, Agamemnon, the legends that would become the Iliad, collapsed. Their palaces burned. Their writing system was lost. Greece wouldn't be literate again for 400 years. Cyprus, the ancient copper superpower, devastated. Kadesh, the site of the greatest battle of the Bronze Age, destroyed and literally vanished from history. The destruction was so total that the entire eastern Mediterranean entered what historians call a dark age. Writing disappeared in most regions. Trade stopped. Populations crashed. The world forgot how to make bronze. And in nearly every destroyed city, the same story: burned walls, arrowheads in the rubble, and no clear record of who did it. Except in one place. Egypt survived. And the Egyptians, because they were obsessed with recording everything, left us the only eyewitness account of who these attackers were. On the walls of Pharaoh Ramesses III's temple at Medinet Habu, there is a massive carved relief showing an epic naval battle. Egyptian ships ramming enemy vessels, archers firing from shore, enemy warriors falling into the water in their distinctive feathered headdresses. The inscription reads, "The foreign countries made a conspiracy in their islands. No land could stand before their arms. They were coming forward toward Egypt, while the flame was prepared before them." And then Ramesses names them: the Peliset, the Cheker, the Shekelesh, the Denyen, the Weshesh. 5 names, 5 tribes. An entire confederacy coming by land and sea, and they weren't just raiders. The inscription specifically says they came with their families. Women, children, ox carts, This wasn't a raid. This was a migration. An entire people on the move, looking for new land, destroying everything in their path. Ramesses claims he defeated them in the Battle of the Delta, around 1178 BC. Egypt held. But the inscription also reveals something chilling. Before they reached Egypt, these peoples had already destroyed the Hittites, Carchemish, Arzawa, Cyprus, and Ugarit. The text says, "No land could stand before their arms." The Egyptians weren't fighting newcomers. They were fighting the people who had already ended the world. This is the question that's haunted archaeologists for over a century. And here's the honest answer. We still don't know for certain. But we have theories. And each one reveals something different about what was really happening. Theory 1. They were Mycenaean Greeks. The Aquesh and Denyen, two of the named sea peoples, sound suspiciously like Achaeans and Danans. Those are the names Homer used for the Greeks. Their helmets in Egyptian reliefs match Mycenaean archaeological finds. If this theory is right, the sea peoples were, at least partly, the very civilization that was also collapsing. Refugees turned conquerors. Victims turned destroyers. Theory 2. They were from Sardinia and Sicily. The Sherdans sound like Sardinia. The Shekelesh sound like Sicily. Bronze figurines found in Sardinia show warriors with horned helmets that match Egyptian depictions of the Sherdan exactly. Were they Western Mediterranean peoples, pushed east by some unknown pressure? Theory 3. They were from Anatolia and the Levant. The Luca came from Lycia, modern southwest Turkey. The Peliset are almost certainly the Philistines, who settled in Canaan after the collapse and became the enemies of the Israelites in the Bible. Some scholars think many sea peoples were simply displaced populations from already collapsing regions, not a unified invading force at all. Theory 4. The sea peoples were a symptom, not the cause. This is the theory most modern scholars lean toward. Eric Cline's groundbreaking work argues that the Bronze Age didn't collapse because of one enemy. It collapsed because the system was fragile. Climate data shows a severe drought hit the eastern Mediterranean around 1200 BC. Grain shipments dried up. Earthquakes struck multiple cities. Trade routes that everyone depended on started failing. When one kingdom fell, it pulled down the next, like dominoes. The sea peoples, in this view, weren't the cause of the collapse. They were the collapse in motion, displaced, starving people from failing kingdoms, sweeping across the Mediterranean looking for somewhere, anywhere, to survive. They weren't an army. They were a migration, a human tidal wave created by a world falling apart. The Bronze Age never came back. The Dark Age that followed lasted centuries. Writing disappeared. International trade stopped. Entire languages were lost. But here's what's strange. Some of the sea peoples survived and thrived. The Peliset settled the coast of Canaan and became the Philistines, building cities like Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron. Their pottery shows Aegean origins. Their DNA confirms European ancestry. They went from destroyers to city builders in a single generation. The Sherdan may have settled Sardinia. The Checker settled at Dor, on the coast of modern Israel. These barbarian invaders became the foundation of the next age. And Egypt? Ramesses III won the Battle of the Delta. But within decades, Egypt entered its own long decline. The new kingdom fell. The age of pharaohs building pyramids and conquering empires was over. Nobody truly survived the Bronze Age collapse, not even the victors. 3,200 years later, we still can't answer the basic question. Were the sea peoples invaders or refugees? Conquerors or victims? Did they destroy civilization, or were they just the most visible symptom of a world that was already dying? Maybe what's most unsettling is how familiar it sounds. A globalized network where every economy depends on every other. Supply chains that work perfectly until they don't. Climate pressure, mass migration, and the comfortable assumption that the system is too big to fail. The Bronze Age world thought that too. The Sea Peoples are still out there, in the ruins, in the clay tablets, in the letters that were never sent. And after 3,000 years of looking, we still don't know their names.